YuptheFlats. YuptheFlats. Switch. YuptheFlats. Live on Magicminds.
Okay, so we're live. Welcome back to the Magicminds podcast. I'm Matt Bork. You're watching and listening to the Liberty's #1 podcast, Yup the Liberties, Yup the Flats. We have got another Yup the Flats episode for you today with an absolute legend from the Ross Road. Tony May, what's the crack?
Alright,
Deadly to have you on. Deadly delighted to get you on board.
just for the record, I'm not from the Ross Road. I'm from Fighting My Mansions. I live here the last 20 years, in 21 years. But originally, my family are from here. They're from Cowan Street and Golden Lane, so Stones Throw. And I think we lived in York Street before we moved up to so I'm back. I was born in the Cowan, the old Cowan, and I was christened in St. Francis Street. And so I'm a Liberty boy anyway, but I'm from Fatima. I'm from the Flats.
Up the Fatima.
The Flats. I'm a Fatimanian. That's what I am.
Guys, I've asked Tony to come on because he lives near enough to me, bro. My bro talks about him all the time. He speaks really highly of him. He has a story, like most of us have a story, and Tony's been generous enough to share it with us. And for something tells me this is going to be a bit of a crack, and it's going to be an adventure. So look, Tony, tell us about life growing up in the Flats. Go back to your childhood. Give us an insight.
Yeah, like when I meet friends or I meet family members, always have this sort of rose tinted picture of growing up in the Flats, and I think that nostalgia comes into play. But I think what they sometimes forget how difficult it was growing up in the Flats. I was in a family of 11 children, father and mother, in a 3-bedroom in Fighting My Mansions, and we were pure.
And back in the 50s?
Back in the 50s. So I think it was 54 maybe they moved in, 55. It was maybe 53, but I'm not sure the actual date. I was born in 59, late 59. And so I was born into a community who would have been considered as mansions, coming from the tenements to Fighting. I would have been considered. You had your own bathroom, you had a bath, you had, your toilet, you had 3 bedrooms and a cooking facility and stuff like that. But as time went on, there was 11 children, and so there was always a great sense of community. There was always community spirit. There was always a family, and particularly my own mother, my family would give you half of what they had, which was fairly little, and they would share that amongst neighbours, especially people who were less fortunate than us. Even though we were impoverished, there was a great sense of community, but it wasn't always. I didn't always operate too well within the outside, not even in the gaff or outside. And I think alcoholism played a huge part in our home as well. So you're coming from that background, you're coming from overcrowded poverty, you didn't know where your next meal was coming from, you didn't know whether the lights were going to be turned off, that type of stuff. It was a minefield. So, and then you had to go out into the flats and navigate that. Then one thing navigating at home, going into the flats is a different ball game,
Yeah. What would you say? They can be non-forgiving environments at times.
Yeah, not non-forgiving is a nice word. Don't think forgiven, no. Yeah.
So tell us about some of the adventures you got up to them in the flats. Paint a bit of picture for me there.
Well, like for example, I didn't know I was a very sensitive child. I didn't know that until I had to ignore them signs or signals, because it was a useless thing to have going into back into amongst the community, to be sensitive and show some sort of vulnerability. It wasn't good. You'd be crucified for that, you know.
So I can resonate with that.
Yeah.
I was the same as a sensitive soul, but I held on to fears, worries,
You had to
anxieties.
hide it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't nurtured at home. It was told you got into trouble, you get out and you put your fists up and deal with it like that. So nobody ever sort of nurtured that side. We didn't know, you know, had our own stuff going on. I was never really encouraged to be myself. I had to be the way I was told you'd be. Go out and fight your battles.
Take no
You
shit
know,
off anyone.
you know, Dad's motto was hit first, ask questions later. I don't know whether that was a good idea or not, you know. Although it came to me a couple of weeks going down. And I was going, oh no, don't do it.
You take the man out of the flats, we
you
can't take the flats out
I'm
of the
telling
man.
you, it was like, it was brutal. Plus, I had a squint in my eye when I was a kid, and I had to wear these glasses. And I wasn't cool to have glasses. You were singled out. I was small, but I was ferocious when I got into the fight. It's the build up was unnerving, and it was the whole process of getting into the fight was that fight or flight always on me. I didn't know what it was. It was fear and panic. It was fear more than anything. And but once I was in there, it was good to go.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't know I was that. I didn't know it was that. I didn't know that. But what I was very good at was being, I could see flaws in people's arguments. I was very, you know, it was
Analytical minds.
Yeah, I had, and it got me into all sorts of trouble. So I was very objective. I could see an objective view, and I would have that. And you say, oh, here we go again.
Need a bullshit filter.
You know what I mean? I was taking I don't agree with that, and sometimes I would say black is white. I don't know why I did it, but I did, and it got me into all sorts of problems. But it got me out of loads as well, you know. So as I said, but there was a real sense of community, and I think that the real useful thing growing in my home was we were sharp with.
That used to get me out of a lot of trouble. I had a quick tongue.
Oh yeah.
I was lethal. I could slag people, I could take the piss, and I could see what you could see. I was very objective.
Yeah.
But you needed that.
Yeah. And it was like that in our home. My brothers were lethal, and they were brilliant. And it always reminds me when I seen Christy Brown, My Left Foot, when you're eating the porridge around the table, and he's saying, what did you say? And you were all in knots laughing, even though you're going to get a clapper. But they just couldn't help themselves just to be witty or have crack a joke. And my brothers were all like that, and all fighters and footballers and all of that stuff, and drinkers. And so I look back with mixed feelings about my experiences growing up in the flats, because of I was singled out, I was bullied because of my objectivity. I was bullied because I was vocal. I was bullied because I had glasses. I was slagged off because I had a squint in my eye. I was slagged off for every chance. I was small. I didn't get a game of football unless I came down. I should have got. I was probably 5 inches taller. I'd have been second picked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was down the pecking order in them as well. So, and the fact that I was people call it small man syndrome. I didn't even know I was small, to be honest. I just was very sensitive and couldn't see the logic why I was not getting picked into people who weren't as good as me. They were a bit taller, but they weren't as good as me. And all them things was going on. And didn't like school. We were hit going to school because we didn't have the proper books, or we didn't have, you get lunch, and then we were hit for going in late. It wasn't their fault for going in late. I mean, my mother couldn't get us up all at the same time, or feed us and send us out.
11 kids in the gaff.
And then if you didn't have a catechism, there was this horrific priest. He was a nasty man, and he used to hit kids for not knowing things about the catechism, even though they didn't have them, and he would slap them. I mean, fiercely slap them. And I resented that man, and I hated going to school. It was safer not to be at school for me.
You used to go on the hop a lot?
Yeah, all the time. it was safer sometimes. I ended up sleeping on the streets when I was about 11 or 12 because it was safer for me to stay at home, not to go home because my father, who become ill in the process, he was 44, he had a massive stroke, and he was unable to I suppose what you would call chastise us then because he was paralysed, but he was brutally touched and he had his stick with him, you know. So I felt like I was safer not to go home sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sleeping rough for 11 and getting pulled in by the police at all hours of the morning, brought home to your family to say, look, we found him wandered in the streets. So my daughter's 14 and she's afraid to walk off across the road on her own, like, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. It's a different life, isn't it now?
I had street skills from when I was a kid, you know?
Yeah.
So, and they served me well in a lot of ways, like, you know? So, yeah. It was a colourful experience growing up, I have to say, you know?
For any of our young viewers, a catechism is a religious book, isn't
Yeah.
it?
It's a shortened version of
The
version
Bible.
of the Bible. Some extracts from the Bible would be in it and stories. So yeah, I wasn't that interested in religion, and I knew the Our Father and the Hail Mary. That was it.
Yeah. So just to paint the picture, like you're after telling me like the difficulties at home, the personal challenges, the authority challenges, and then when people think, why did you have difficulties? All those fucking 10 or 20 things I was telling you about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a hard life,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like life is not easy growing up.
No.
Like, what's it like to hear that back saying that to yourself again?
I've had these conversations before, but I've always been very philosophical about it, and I was always very clear about how I felt about growing up. People, as I said from the outset, it was always rose tinted glasses. It was always like nostalgic. Do you remember when the summers were, you know, like the Gladys Knight song type of thing?
Yeah.
You know, it was all so simple then, and some of it was. So growing up in that, coming up from like an alcoholic sort of environment, and all the brothers, you know, the passage was to get to the, you know, with your dad and have a pint in the pub when you were 18, but I was drinking well before that. I was drinking like probably when I was about 11 years of age and stuff like that. And so yeah, it was although there was a real sense of identity, and Fatima was a badge of honour to say I'm from Fatima, I'm from the flats, and whether it was Dolphin House, Trees' Gardens, Pimlico, wherever, you know what I mean? We always were very proud, and what was really good about it was we had a pool of players that was incredible footballers.
That's one thing came out of flats, good footballers.
Yeah.
Like you think of the Bond, Fatima, Dolphins, Barn,
Sherifer.
Sherifer.
Yeah.
Some great ballers.
Yeah, unbelievable. I have a friend, Martin O'Shaughnessy, who would say the reason he didn't give the ball to anybody was because he didn't know when he was going to get it back. So, and it wasn't his ball most of the time. And he became really, really good. Again, it came to where people much more skillful than me, but I lacked in skill. I was full of endeavour and I was industrial. You watch him, you're going to do, you have to go where he goes. You didn't get by you. And if you're given a job like that, he didn't want to let anyone down. So my brothers were really skillful. I'd probably be in the middle of this. I was the middle child as well. And so I was in the middle brothers as well. There was 6, 7 brothers. I was in the middle, and it was 3 older than me and 3 younger than me, and I was in the middle with the kid, with the all the family. So I was in the middle about who was, you know, to say there was 4 of them, 3 of them were better than me, so I was 4th, and then there was 3 wasn't as good as me, that were less than me. So I was always in that. But it was fucking mad as well. I mean, we used to go to places like Kildare and a toy Kildare. We'd go to some parts of the country and we would be taking stuff that was left unattended. We say.
No always on the stroke.
You know what I mean? I remember one time we just raided this factory down there. It was like video recorders, you know, they got that stuff. We had them all on the bus, but the police came and they knew Fatima was in town. So we got them back anyway. There was no one arrested, but we went in and took them all, and we got them back out. But we were renowned for our football, and there was an element of it that there was criminality involved, because even when I was growing up, I knew that in fashion particularly, and I didn't have the money to get it, and I wasn't stupid, and I thought, well, why is other people that I see in town, they're able to have these clothes, and I was trying to add it up. Well, how are you doing that? And then they were working basically. They came from maybe much more affluent families, and you're able to do that. And you're able to provide them with these clothing, and whereas I just thought, I want to be like that. I want to have them clothes, so I went about getting it illegally, and I would go and I would take stuff, and I would, I got caught early, and getting charged with larceny and all of them types of things. And so as a result of that, the early days was in Patrick's institution and things like that. So going in there as a young kid who had no real sense of myself, nobody guided me.
And you're already bringing the baggage that we spoke about earlier, bringing that with you.
Yeah.
Not only the flats are harsh and boring, you're going now into it.
I'm going into it, a big offset flats. You're talking Sheriff Street, Teresa's Garden, you're talking Summer Hill, you're talking like Gardner Street, you're talking the whole shebang. It's run in the middle of all that. And luckily enough, you'd know people, and it was a rite of passage as well. I call it the unnatural progression, and it was unnatural for any child to grow up and expect to go into these places, and that was just a reality. That was because as I said, I didn't have the sense of self and why I was doing these things. It was almost like you were all doing it.
It's at a conscious level, and you're just fucking crap.
It was a subconscious thing, I didn't even know that. And it was only later on in life that I could see that, even at a subconscious level, how traumatized I was by certain events in my life. So it was only through, embarking on a new journey later on in life that I began to see why I was doing these things. While I was left to my own devices, as I said, I didn't have anybody who nurtured me, or who could identify some talent in me and say, listen, someone put their arm around my shoulder and say, listen, this is a path you're going to take. If you continue on doing this, this is where you're going to end up. There's a route this way that you can avoid that. Nobody. I was told, you go to work. No one told me about the principles of work. I was looking at it going, I'm working for $5 a week, and I could probably get that in an hour. The chances are I'd probably take a few hours to get that. $5 a week when I was a kid was, them times was a lot of money, but I just thought,
so as you said, you started self-medicating unbeknownst to yourself from
days.
11, 12.
Oh yeah.
When did it start getting heavy? Gargling, drugs?
Well, initially it was just that alcohol, and then the progression of hash.
Yeah, me too. We went there.
Get the hash and the alcohol, and you just didn't think you could go out without that. And then, with the introduction of opiates and amphetamine, and cocaine, and heroin kicked in about. I took heroin for the first time in 1978, and I was in the Thomas More House, and these people who eventually got involved in distributing it around the city offered me a bit, and I was intrigued by it. I just said, I'll have some of that. But it wasn't that much that I was really stoned or anything like that. But it done something for me, and I thought, that wasn't bad. It wasn't enough to get me really, and then it just took off. I was just landed here. And it was a real.
The 80s was heavy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like, it was heavy. 79, 80 was when it arrived, and when I got it in the form that I used it in, it was like tailor-made for me. It erased any insecurities I had. It erased any any doubts I had about myself. It just neutralised all that. It just made me feel this warm feeling. Didn't care. I had
love,
everything
empathy.
out of it, like, you know. But that was the soon torn on me anyway, and I didn't know that. I didn't know the nature of it. I didn't know the nature of the beast what I was engaged in, and what it done was a pain relief more than anything. It was a coping mechanism, and I didn't understand it. And there was the whole communities were just torn apart by that. You know?
Oh, ripped through.
So and then then I've been back into Patrick's in and out from when I was 16 upwards until I was 20, and then the progression then into Mountjoy, and then in and out of Mountjoy for years, being strung out from getting bouts of, you know, I wouldn't say sobriety or anything, but absent from powder or heroin particularly, because that was the drug that was getting me into all sorts of trouble. But it was getting into trouble anyway through alcohol and trying to having to have the money for that, you know. And so there was all of that going on, you know.
Yeah, and there was no family immune to it. Like, it was right through the liberties.
No.
Now, the inner city, you know,
Yeah.
I can remember clearly. I don't remember a lot of the children through all the drugs I could.
Yeah.
For all the, you know, the concerned parents, the marches, the fucking,
Yeah.
the robbing. I was only telling me young one there,
Horrific.
the 80s, end of the 90s, the amount of people that done jump overs,
Oh.
armed robberies. Like I used to drink in the pub around here,
Yeah.
the Chinaman's and that
Yeah.
was handy.
Yeah.
The amount of people that used to come in after jump over,
Yeah.
and she was like, what's a jump over that?
Yeah.
I said, fucking someone around with a bank card, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And heroin, it was synonymous.
What happened was what happened was you had these people who you could trust. Basically, people trusted them. You knew they were, we would call them ordinary, decent criminals.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they were doing things that was way out of character. They were different beings altogether. The physical sense had changed. The whole attitude had changed. The whole trust had gone down. You start turning on people in the flats and robbing like flats in their own communities,
Wow.
and which that was unheard of. You could leave your doors open, but because of the compulsive nature of the drug, if you didn't have it, you'd be withdrawn. So you had to get it, and it didn't matter who got in the way. And then your mates was ripping you off, but you never experienced. Probably bogart a joint on you or something, but they wouldn't rip you. Do you know what I mean? So this was happening, and people were looking at these were like it was like these were zombies. They had turned into lovely people and had turned into like the Thriller Blade video. Do you know what I mean? They were trolling. It was horrific. And then HIV hit, and then it was a whole different ball game. And then my own brother died from AIDS, and I don't know how. God only knows how I've never contracted HIV. I mean, used with him all the time. I used people with full blown AIDS. I used people with. It didn't matter to me because the power of wanting to use and the compulsion to use was so strong. It didn't matter what you didn't care about tomorrow. You just wanted it now, and now was like it didn't matter who you were using after. It was a game of Russian roulette, and I think I have a gene that was able to fight that off. I had Hep C, but it naturally rid itself in the body, got rid of it.
My cousin was saying just after the 80s chronic care, he got AIDS full blown now, F A B and C right away through fucking liver gone, lung collapsed.
You know, and I was
at 14 he started using.
Do you know what I mean? So like you have all these things that was happening, and people just were powerless to do anything about it. They were unskilled with dealing with this stuff. It just landed on them. And poverty in itself was hard enough. It was a tough life anyway. And all of a sudden, here we go. This wave of this epidemic that had just descended on them, and they didn't know how to do it. So when what we would call the vigilantes was born from concerned parents who are really concerned. You have parents who are really concerned. And then it turned out that people, you know, who were involved were just some of them are very violent and just attached themselves with that and just had a reason to exercise the brutality and the violence and power over people. And then, but they didn't see them as sick people, they just seen them as scum of the earth, and they didn't treat them very well. And then I would have been subject to that. I was barred from the flats for selling hash and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And they, you know, they barred me from the flats. They had a vote.
Yeah, I got kicked off my own road on John Dillon Street with the concerned parents. I wasn't able to fucking play on my own road.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, you know, it's like, what the hell, like, you know? So, and then, like, there was always, like, and then I remember I remember getting sent to prison one time for something I hadn't done, right? But as soon as, you know, you'd fight it off, you'd try to fight it and say, you know, what you're doing, and you'd get there and you could go, look, it's poetic justice really because of all the stuff I got away with. And it was once I got my head around that, I said, look, you know what I mean? Should have been here for loads of other things. Be all right with it, you know? And so that happened. And then another one that I went to the High Court with a charge. I was singled out, picked out for a robbery, smashing a car window and taking a handbag. Was those people in it?
Another huge handbag robbing a car.
Yeah, yeah. And there was, I knew who did it. I didn't think they would find me guilty because there was very little evidence other than visual contact, eye contact, which it doesn't really hold in court. Visual identification is not enough, but yet they found me guilty. And again, I got in and I was really disappointed about that one. Do you know what I mean? I thought, yeah, I'd get the card. And there was someone that was with who said she'd come to court with me, but she was sick, and I had the money to get her some girl how she'd come to court with me, and she wouldn't answer the door, and I had to go to court anyway. So I was found guilty anyway. So, and I think around that time I started really getting in touch with myself, with me as a person, as a human being, and this freaked me out because the first time I ever saw like the moon, right? Like you've seen the moon hundreds of times, but I've seen it one night. I was smoking some fucking black hash in the cell, and someone was calling out, looked out, and there was a full moon, and I just there was floating around, nothing harming up. I just realised that I've never been taught that. And, you know, we were in a solar system, all that stuff didn't fucking dawn on me, thought, and it freaked me out, right? It freaked me out. What is all this? And it's weird how vulnerable you become, and how I was looking for something. I didn't know what I was looking for. I was looking for some sort of to make sense of my existence, right? And why was I on this planet? And why was I not that type of thinking, right?
Existential moment.
Yeah, right. So it was, you know, and I remember being beforehand. What happened was I was walking around the exercise yard up in the Joy there, and Anthony May, visit. He was a John May. I assumed it was my brother Johnny, who later on died anyway, and it was my cousin John May, and he was the leader of the Jehovah's Witnesses in Dublin and Ireland actually. And he's very convincing, and I didn't need much convincing because I was very vulnerable. I was feeling cited because I was found guilty for something I hadn't done, and I thought it was unjust, which I was. But you know, as I said, poetic justice usually prevails anyway. So, and I'm there sitting. He's telling me about God had plans for me, right? Because I had no plans for myself. He said, whoever God was to me, I didn't even understand that. I used to go, Hail Mary or Our Father, and that'd be it. And you say your prayers, and you know, and then say you sin, Father, it's a week since my last confession type of thing. It was all lip service, but he convinced me that God had a plan for me, and it was going to be pain free, and it was going to be forever, and it was going to be all these bells and whistles and no pain anymore, and I would never die and all this stuff, right? I was convinced. I remember going into the government the next morning, and I said to him, I want to resign to the Catholic Church. He was looking at me, but I had to write to the Minister for Justice for permission to do that, right? Because I was in his car, and so I wrote out this half sheet. You have to write out this half sheet, and to whom I may concern it, to the Minister for Justice, whoever it was, and the governor had to co-sign it, so I could get spiritual guidance off the Jehovah's Witnesses, right? And for a visit. I wasn't even getting any drugs in the visit. But it was weird because I was very open to some sort of meaningful, reason why I was here. Looking to, what's the story here? It wouldn't make sense of my existence. You know what I mean? I knew I belonged to a family. I knew I was I was from Fatima, but when push came to shove, I was very I was fucked up.
Because you'd no attachment.
No.
Yeah, you're attached to flats, but as a human connection, I'm not saying about your mom or your dad. I'm sure they weren't available.
Yeah.
There was no attachment. That's what drugs get you.
Yeah.
And that's what God does.
Exactly.
Attachment.
It does, and that's that. You have some sort of identity. Right? It was an identity. It was a heroin addict. It was a criminal. It was from the flats.
Attachment.
Exactly. So when that experience with the smoking a bit of long, seeing the moon for the first time, it freaked me out. Right? It took me a couple of days to get my head around it. Nearly lost it. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, wow, how vast this was. And I didn't realise how minuscule I was in all this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Never thought. You know, you said
conscious of your actual consciousness
and existence, right?
Yeah.
And it freaked me out a little bit, right? So, and then I came down to earth a little bit, right? So it's still used going out on the visits, and I still like the idea that there was a power greater than me that was loving and caring and wanted to provide me with this long and everlasting life that was painless or pain free, and that it was utopia really. But it was an I suppose I expected it was going to last, but it didn't. So it wore off. So I mean, I used to just go out because the guy John May stopped coming up, right? He had other, I suppose, he had other fishes to fry, really. Do you know what I mean? He had to convince people with a load of lies that I hope he's not seeing this. But he'd even tell you that himself anyway.
Is he still in the Jehovah's?
No, he resigned from them. He resigned. I was only having a conversation with him this morning about vaccines and about small. So he stopped coming up. He sent this man up who was
his disciple.
Yeah, his second in command maybe it was, but he was a beautiful man. And he was so spiritual. He was so well. He was convinced that what he was doing was the right thing for him, and he was really, really nice guy. And he had nothing but love and tolerance and patience, which I had none of. Spiritual principles that were alien to me.
Of course, it's a different language.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm going, and I was attracted to that, right? Because I wasn't born into that. I was brought up told what to do. I was never told why or the principle behind that. So I didn't understand principles as such. And that if there was a principle or you paid back money, that was a principle. I knew that type of principle, but spiritual principles were different, and I could get that off him in abundance, right? And he turned up all the time, and then eventually I think I got out. And once you're in there, you still have to negotiate your existence in there, and you have to avoid certain pitfalls. I was very good. I was very diplomatic. And I was able to mix with the best and the worst. You know what I mean? My son always says, it's always good to be on the wrong side, the right side of the wrong people. You know what I mean? And that's the way I was in prison. So I would have known people that that were renowned for renowned criminals that I got on really well with. And when you pair all that image down, and they were just like me, they were vulnerable, but you had this image to maintain, you had this reputation to keep, and you could see they were just ordinary Joe Soaps. They were coming from the same background for me, from dysfunction, from poverty, from lack of opportunities in the community, all of that stuff. But found a way into criminality, and they saw that they could earn money far easier than going out to work. So, without mentioning any names, but there was a whole load of people, and you knew who to avoid as well, and not to cross, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you became a people pleaser to some extent. But it was all about diplomatic skills and how
Survival.
to survival, right? You knew what to do, where to go, who to go to, who to avoid, who to appease, and who to say no to, you know. So it was very skillful thing to do, you know, especially in prison. It is fortunately enough, I never had to be involved in a riot in Mountjoy, you know. I never had to be.
Many years did you do all in all in prison?
Probably about 8 years. In different, you know, different settings.
Here too.
Yeah, I've done a few more. I've done 5 months in England, in Brixton and
what was that like?
Scrubs. It's more difficult than this.
Yeah, what was that like going to England? Because we know the relationship you had and you going over there.
No, there's a lot of Irish there. There's a lot of second, third generation Irish there. Anyway, most of the people that I was locked up with in England were all Irish names. So I met someone from Teresa's Gardens. I was going, my man's from Teresa's Gardens, you know, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Again, I had to apply the same principles. Be careful who
universal, aren't you?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you had to be wide. You had to sort of assess it. You had to sort of, you know what's the story here? And it's that orientation when you're just being orientated into it. You go in disorientated, but you have to get orientated fairly quickly, you know. But as I said, you go through this, and I was involved in, I was a petty criminal. I was a terrible criminal. I was getting caught all the time. The stuff I was doing was very, like, people would see me doing it, or it was that type of stuff. So I was liable to be arrested anyway. So it was always through that in and out of prison, you know. And then, as I said, I got strung out and managed to get a few years keeping it together, just drinking and smoking a bit of hash or weed, dropping some acid or mushrooms, some coke. As long as you stay away from the brown, you're brand new, right? Yeah. Stay away from that. Yeah. You're not good at that. Stay off the brown, you know. But I just didn't have. I would get bouts of being able to do that, but then, you know, eventually the go-to drug. It was the pain. It was the painkiller, really, you know. But it turned nasty on you then, and then. So as I said, it was like that, and you know, then I think around 80, maybe 86, I started thinking about, I have a problem here with drugs, you know. I mean, a serious problem. I was getting bouts of staying away from it, but getting heavily involved in alcohol and other drugs. There was still always some drug.
Always some kind of an
it was all that going on, and I didn't. And then, sorry. So it was always some sort of substance, and you know, especially with the football, then you get involved in the football and you follow the team that was winning all the tournaments. Feynman were renowned for it, right? You were the best in this area for sure, and probably in Dublin if you were the counterball the trophies up. There's great footballers from Teresa's Gardens, from Dolphin House, from Oliver Bond, from York Street, and all around the surrounding areas. But you had a pool of such talented players, right? Like the Reeds and the Mays, the O'Shaughnessy's, the Comans. Hope we don't leave anybody out, the Bow, wherever, like the Bows, whoever. They were just we were blessed with so many gifted and talented players, right? But they all had substance problems. The problem was they could never fucking get enough of it.
What did one of the arse about Tony Adams says, I have a drink problem every time I go to the bar. Mercy's in UA.
Yeah, he falls up there. So there was always that, and there was always violence as well. There was always, you know, involved in some sort of violence or some sort of fights, or and it was part and parcel of growing up, and you know, I remember being sentenced for. I was on crutches at the time when I tried to do a jump over on crutches. Imagine that. Anyway,
that's so paradoxical. Jump over on crutches.
Yeah, right. You know what? If it was sober, I'd be able to do it. It was that athletic, like, you know.
Yeah.
I remember the police standing over me the next morning, assisting me into the car, and that the man was injured in the shop and I got sentenced for that as well. So there was always periods of really um, that where alcohol was just causing real problems, right? So there was always some sort of drug that was causing me problems. So I'd end up in the bride, but I'd end up waking up and I'd wet the bed, or you know what I mean. And then I had a mother who had 7 boys who were addicted to either drugs or alcohol, and as a father now and as a grandfather now, I know that what that's like, and I feel that, and I said, God help her, she was such a powerhouse that she was able to manage that, and looking at us, the miles in front of her, dying in front of her, and what that must have been like for her. So it was only so throughout the years, I remember actually going to London because the drugs were better there. So we go to drug.
You travelled around the world a bit, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I go around now. I went to so we for example, so we had these periods of not not using heroin, but we do it every now and then behind the door, how no one would see us, right? Because it was always that buzz, it was always that comfort, it was always it was a great buzz. So you do it behind the door, but we had this sort of contract that we didn't do it in front of people. We do it behind the closed doors, so we were still off it, right? But we'd have the sneak in. But we were able to save some money, and we got the idea that we'd go away to Europe, somewhere to Greece, and remember we got there, and like it was a whole new world open to us, and there was a group of us that used to go, and we'd go to Greece and we'd go around the islands, and then we went to, I remember these Australians invited us to, on a journey from Athens up through from Yugoslavia into Austria and into Germany through Switzerland and Germany and down up to Amsterdam. Like it was like
That's from Fight
from Fight Man.
Oh Jesus!
Up the flats, and that's all we ever done. Up the flats, right? And I have a video actually. I go skiing now, right? And I have a video of us all going down with tricolours in Trysil in Norway at a convention, an Narcotics Anonymous convention, and we're all there. The flats about Sheriff Street, Ballymun, Fatima.
And back then we used using
just recently, last few
when
years.
Went away,
we were just drinking, and if there was other drugs we could get, we take them, but not heroin, not brown. We were. But someone came with some methadone, something. Get super dry.
Get the molly into it.
Yeah, get the molly into it. Drop the brand new. But so this had opened up, but then through that period I began to use again, and then what happened was with me particularly, I remember going out with this girl who was beautiful. She was an amazing woman. She was an amazing girl. She got involved. She found Jesus and God, and I there was only one winner there, I wasn't going to win against Jesus, and she chose him over me, and it absolutely folded like a death check. I couldn't comprehend how easy it was hurt and how easy, but I just used more drugs to ease the pain, and somebody had rejected me and had left me, and I didn't know how to handle that. This was the first time ever I had been so savagely affected by someone walking away from me. I couldn't, and I couldn't even understand what to be loyal to somebody, because I've seen so many friends who are going out with girls, being with other girls, and I thought it was the norm. So I used to do that. It meant then that it was. I only knew then that it was self-esteem issues. It wasn't. I was trying to, conquer this thing, and I know he's such a great bloke. I'm able to get the boards and all that stuff. I remember when she done that, and it just rocked me to me absolute core. I just didn't know how to. Again, I talked to you earlier about nobody had told me, and nobody had nurtured me, nobody had said to me, "You're going to be heartbroken," and that's just the way it's going to happen. You have to allow it to take place. Gather around your family.
No
You
life
go,
skills.
snap it over. I mean, mine who never liked her anyway. You know what I mean?
Labour.
That's what Labour. You know what I mean? In God's squad has a Labour, that type of stuff. But shit, it was absolutely destroyed. It was. And I got really down. I got really strung out. Then. I got it. And then I remember, you know, we need to get out of this town. We need to get out of here. We're going to go to Greece again. We're going to go over there and we get to Israel. Right? So anyway, we get to Greece and we had this bottle of methadone that we were going to do a 10-day detox. And it was gone in 3 days. And so we guzzled that. We were left with just alcohol to get us through that. It was a mad thing. We ended up in... get to Israel. We booked we get a ferry from where we go. Went to Crete, which we couldn't get from Crete to Israel. We had to go back from Crete to Athens, from Athens then to Israel. The first guy I met in Israel was from Adelaide Road. He was an Irish Jew. The first man I met, an Irish Jew from Adelaide Road. His dad was the rabbi in the synagogue on Adelaide Road. And then I met a family from Mee Street. Who had moved there, Jewish family. The son was in the Israeli forces then. But there was all that going on. I was trying to, you know, I still had this compulsion in my head, just this to use, and I just couldn't, you know, I was just drinking raw vodka, and you were supposed to be going to work every morning. I was hiding on the duty. You turn up at this pub, and people would wait, you know, and you pick you and you go off. I didn't want to do that. I just hadn't a headspace. Mine wasn't right, and getting out of the shop. I mean, a nice few quid going, like, you know. And then we said, look, the price of getting out of this Israel, where do you want to go? It was Paris or Munich. And I said, go to Munich, because we had been there the year before at the beer festival. I said, get to Munich. We get a few quid in Munich, right? We get a few quid in Munich. It's handy. Let's get there. And so we decided, we were all in. Munich, take whatever money we had. Munich, please. We'll get a few quid when we get there. We'll use our street smarts when we get there. And we got there from I was with from Mee Street, because he wasn't having a good time, and some of the people in the crowd didn't like him. And I didn't want to see him left just ostracized. And I said, I wouldn't do that to the human being. So I said, come on, we'll go. We'll get the money when we get to Munich. But he had no money. But we got sus trying to fucking touch for a few quid handbag in the train station, and it came on top. So we had to hide. You know, we'd no money, we'd nothing. And we'd been left in another country in prison, and so we had to hide. And then I just met people. I used my street smarts, and I met an Irish Australian, and his name was Michael McMahon. Proud Irishman, even though he's never in Ireland. But he's more Irish than me, right? And I was telling him about I applied the money that we were expecting, it didn't turn up on. And he gave us money and bought us beer and all of that stuff. And then I met this beautiful Swedish girl, who we went up to Amsterdam with these two Canadian guys. Wasn't even aware that it was these two gorgeous Swedish girls, these two good looking guys, Canadian guys. They have to be with each other, but I can be very charming as well. So I got involved with this Swedish girl, but only years later I found out they were gay. I didn't know that, but and they were leaving me at the train. I was leaving them at the train station to go to Amsterdam. I said, I'm fucking getting on this train. I don't care. I hadn't a bum. And I jumped on the train, and then Munich to Amsterdam. I got the come around for tickets. I had no ticket. I was hiding in the toilet, and he got me out. He said, I'm going to have to get off the train on the German border and the Dutch border. But the Canadian guys bought me a ticket and got me to Amsterdam. They brought me there, and he bought me weed, he bought me beer, and he let me stay in the hotel and all of that stuff. I still have contact every now and then. I'd get a like from that girl from Sweden. I'd get a like from it, you know what I mean? And she was very, I suppose, influential in ways, because I had said to her, I always saw big time, because she sorted me out a few times over there, and I said, when you come to Dublin. When you come to Dublin, I'll look after you. I'll look after you. And she came to Dublin, I had no wash. And I was strung out. And she done the same for me again.
Wow.
And I went, so embarrassing. I was so embarrassed by it, though, you know. And I remember trying to go and make an amends tour in Stockholm years ago, about 6, 7 years ago. I went, I said, I owe this woman an amends. And she said, if they're over here, come over, don't, you know, it'd be good to see you. And I just wanted to give her money. I just wanted to give her money because she had paid so much. And I wanted to give money. She says, if you try to do that, you can just go. I don't want that. I didn't do it for them reasons. I was able to buy the meals and give her son some money, which she didn't know about. And she didn't know, and she would just, you know. And they just welcomed me in. They just cooked food for me, all of that stuff. And because I always never sort of came across people like that that would want to do something without looking for anything in return. I just couldn't comprehend that concept. I just couldn't. And that was a real attraction to me. Not just because she was a good looking woman, but that, you know, I valued that. And I wanted to be able to, I suppose, adopt them type of principles. And as I continue on using it, really, really bad. I got bad again, went back into prison, back out of prison, back to England. I went for a weekend. I was getting out of a treatment centre. I said I'd go for the weekend. I had wardens in London. I got pulled on the way back. There was a guy carrying some drugs, and I just said, come over, accompany me. And I said, I'm not going near that, England. Not going near England. Loads of charges. And I took some heroin that I became invisible, didn't I? And I decided to go. And I got nicked and I was in custody for 40 months. My son was Tony, he's 30 now almost, and in 92 it was. And I got arrested busted at the bar. I was arrested in Holyhead and brought to London to waiting on trial in Brixton Prison, and you know, one with scrubs, and you meet all sorts of stuff. So the journey is varied, it's checkered, it's been like that, but what I didn't know that this was bringing me to a place of discovery, a place of opportunity. When I got so bad, I became so desperate for my drug use that I didn't know, and I only discovered that it was the gift of desperation, that I was prepared to do anything to stop using and hopefully stay stopped.
When did that all turn around?
That happened in 97. I had started years before trying going in and out of treatment. I was in Kilmoyne for about 10 months. I was gone from prison to Kilmoyne, got out, strung out again, and it got really, really bad. It was seriously bad, and eventually I got into a treatment centre, and I had been introduced to Narcotics Anonymous in 91 in St Michael's Apple Ward out in Bournemouth. I didn't understand the mind, how it works, and I didn't understand the concept of it. But because I was so desperate and I was so open and I was so willing to adopt what he was saying, to incorporate these principles that I talking about into my life, which I never really had, and that had gave me this opportunity, and I didn't know that it was going to take off and provide me with a life that was beyond my wildest dreams. Beyond my wildest dreams. I just could never have. If they had taught me that stopping using for one was beyond my wildest dreams, and not having a compulsion to use after that, they said you won't have to use again, that the compulsion to use would lift, right? And that never lifted in me. It always was there in me all the time. I started going, listening to people who were on the same journey, who had been through the same system with me, through poverty, alcoholism, prisons, treatment centres, intravenous drug users, HIV, AIDS, people dying in their communities, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people that I knew that had died. And I have a video called Off the Wall we did on Fatima a few years ago. I must give you a look at it. And the amount of people that died, and we used to be an arch in Fatima. We used to play handball there. So we went back and we threw the ball up for everybody that had died, and we had a competition. We got everybody all from people who lived in Clondalk and they were living in Wexford. They all converged on Fatima because it was the last team they were playing Mel and stuff like that. You should have a look. It's called Off the Wall. It's on the page somewhere. And again, I was doing that social analysis thing, and my motto was that I wasn't that interested in the transformation from flats to houses. It was more the transformation of people for me, because I knew that if they didn't change going into this new community, new houses, that would revert back to their old ways of doing things. Because the honeymoon period where off the houses is, it was all new and spanking new, but behaviours were still going to be the same. And so here I was in this place where I had nothing else to lose, and I had thought, this is my last chance here. I have to try to do something. Like, I was 37 years of age, and I got clean, and I remained clean since then. In 1997, I got on the 24th of April in 1997. I got clean, abstinent from all drugs, and then that just embarked on a whole different journey, a whole life on life's terms, to experience it without the use of drugs, having to develop skills that I never had to adopt principles and practice in my life to get me out of these cul-de-sacs I'd find myself in, or these corners, paint myself into a corner, back myself into a corner, and I didn't have the skill set to get out. So the basic principles that you were saying, I talked about earlier, this man that had them, he had this love and affection, and he had tolerance and forgiveness and all of these things that I needed to exercise in my life, all the resentments that I had from previous relationships or people who had hurt me in the past, or members of my family, or my father, or whatever it was, that I carried them around with me. I didn't know I was up to my neck in trauma and resentment and bitterness, and I couldn't function. I couldn't function properly unless I was able to find a way to let that stuff go, and find a way to alleviate all the harm that I had caused people. At least make the effort, and the 12 steps gives you that opportunity. You know what I mean? It gives you a way of amending some of the stuff that you've done, most of the stuff that you've done, and accept the stuff that you can't change, like things I could never go back and amend, and I could do it indirectly with other things, like being involved in community, helping out with people, giving some time of my time to voluntary organisations, or paying some money to concern, or what, things like that. Ways of amending the stuff that I could never do. I couldn't go back and tell the police that I was at doing X, Y, and Z. It says we make such amends, except when to do so would injure you or others. So I didn't want to be put myself at risk of going to prison. Here I am. I have children now. I had to raise these, and that again was a whole nother new ballgame. And I wanted to make the adjustments. I wanted to break the cycle in my family. For the first time in my life, I was faced with taking responsibility and be a partner and sharing the responsibilities with the children, and domestically. I was called out by this Alabama girl from Alabama. Annie from Alabama. She's an American in the treatment centre, and she heard me making a chauvinistic comment, and she was very feminist. She was a feminist, and so she challenged me on. I didn't like her challenging me in front of people, and so I sided that and I said, "Get her," you know what I mean? But what she had done was she set me up really. She used to expose me a bit in because I was very vocal. Again, I was very vocal. I wanted to learn. I wanted to, try new ways, and she knew that. My enthusiasm was brimming. And then she'd say, would you not like clean a house? That's the woman's job. You know what I mean?
Oh,
I know, but it was to me.
Oh, that's what we grew up with.
And that's what my mother would say that, right? So she used to set traps and say, right, do the delf this week, or hoover, or brush the clock, you know what I mean? That type of stuff. Bring the kids to school and do that, all that stuff. And then it was crucial fun trying to do it. seriously, like, it would be probably 2 hours before I went up to the aftercare and I hadn't done it. And I swear it was like pulling teeth without an anaesthetic to just do stuff like that. But I didn't want her to get the better of me. Now I could have went up and lied, but I wanted to do it. But what it set me on a course of discovery about what had happened then in the end. That I ended up having to look after the kids myself. So it was priming me and prepping me. And I always believed that there was a force or a power greater than me that was taking care of me for some reason.
Jehovah.
And had a part, whoever it is.
Jehovah was looking after
Well,
you.
you know, Jehovah, the old throwing bricks at
You told you paid
You
your
know,
fee.
yeah.
You paid your
But
fee.
something about Jehovah, but
Yeah.
there was a power greater than me, that there was a loving power, force, whatever it may be, because there was all these serendipity moments that it just didn't make sense to me. But then when I look at it, and I thought, you know what, this is a course that's been set for me. This has been a
Perfect
plan, and look, it was very, very painful as well. Again, I didn't have the skills to deal with being in relationships, to be faithful,
How
to
to
be
be
loyal,
intimate.
intimate. Then I was living with somebody who wasn't good mentally at some points in their life through whatever, and trying to negotiate that, trying to stay clean, trying to create a career for myself, and stay clean, be involved, giving back, and trying to be again in them intimate relationships. How do you perform? How do you conduct yourself? So I had to learn all this stuff, and it was all trial and error really. But what I had NA, and I had a fellowship to go to and talk about my difficulties and talk about all the adversity that was happening in my life. I didn't have the skill set to deal with it, but I got the support and the direction, and I knew somewhere subconsciously something happening here, right? And then I remember actually being in the relationship I was in, and obviously there was something in me saying this is not working. Now intuitively I could feel this, right? Consciously I was saying, no, I'm still in it, I have kids here. And I remember going to the city council, put my name down on the list, and that relationship came to an end. And by the time I was a month living in my friend's house in Hardwick Street, he let me stay there. And I always got the support I needed through the NA fellowship. And my mum let me stay there for a while. Then I was offered a place around the corner. So, and then the kids came to live with me, which was another dealing with trauma. Here I am, a man that had, I remember, so I'll tell you how about the chauvinistic thing. I remember wanting to be part of my child's life. My youngest son, Aiden, was born, and my mum had seen me going to shops one week with a shopping bag. It was just a month's back, whatever. Where are you going? I'm going to the shop to get milk and bread with the kids. Why can she not get that? And I said, because she's in a course, or she's cleaning or whatever. She was like that looking at me, you know. She wasn't too pleased that, you know. I wouldn't go to shops for her. Why would I want to be going to fucking anyone else? Like, you know what I mean? So Aiden was born, and I got this, you know, these harnesses. Yeah. So I had him in here. I had him in the harness, proud as punch. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I had a shopping bag, and she says, I'm going round to her. That's it, she said. I'm going around to her. I won't have her. She's making an idiot out of you. Look at you like a woman now, right? Yeah. And that's what I had to compete with and contend with. That these stereotypical views of men and manhood, and that they didn't do them things. She didn't see it as sharing in the responsibility. She's seeing it as me being weak and not being a man enough to say, no, I'm not wearing that, I'm not bringing them on. I wanted to do it. I says, I want to do this, man. There's something wrong with you. Do you know what I mean? No, I want to do something. I want to make a difference, right? And she was so proud that I got clean. I got a job, full-time job in the community. And I remember getting a little car, and I had a computer, and I had a briefcase. It looked like a briefcase. And she knew I was doing basic counsel courses and social analysis, all of that stuff, right? And I remember, I'm not leaving this computer in the car, because someone just have to win and take it. So I'm walking in the door, right, into my office to get a cup of tea, and she's talking to her name and said, he's a counsellor. I'm looking at her. Oh, fuck, he's a counsellor. And I'd gone in with the lady, you know. So she was so proud of me. And I remember doing a eulogy saying, by the way, I'm not a fucking counsellor. I'm becoming your lead counsellor after that. But she was so proud. Here I was, making a difference, and that I had shown and I demonstrated that there was a real change had taken place in my life. I wasn't playing lip service to it. I was talking and walking. What I was saying, I was doing. You know, I could play lip service to lots of stuff, and what I learned then was to you know, honour my word. If I was going to commit to something, I'd honour that, and if I couldn't, it'd have to be literally couldn't do it. I'd turn up on time, which I never did. I could never be counted on. I could give me word and then known to take. And here I was, turning up on time, giving me word on honouring it, committing to things and seeing them through. And these are stuff that was just building in me, and character that was building in me, and people began to see change. To me, I didn't see it that through the naked eye. You wouldn't really see the change, but these things that were taking place was building resolve in me. It was building character in me. They were character building exercises. So in that relationship ended up, I ended up living on my own, and then the children came to live with me. Here I am, like the Tasmanian devil going on. From like a sergeant major, get this, you know. And eventually, I was able to get direction. Do the lunches the night before, press the clothes the night before, so I'd at least alleviate that pressure of getting them up and not being able to treat them as individuals. And there was all like sergeant major stuff. It was all that stuff, right? But I was trying to, with the limited skills, I was trying to do my best, basically. And so as I said, I was, the world was my oyster really. I ended up Hannah's. I got married and I met this girl Veronica. It's funny, I have an incredible story. I have my ex was pregnant on my youngest son Aiden, the guy that I had in the harness. She was pregnant on him, probably about 5 months pregnant. And I'm in a photograph with my wife now, with her. I was with the girl who was pregnant, but my wife now was in the photograph with her, and my wife now helped raise the baby that wasn't even born, Aiden, with me. And I was just like, you know, it's
more serendipity.
You know what I mean? And here I am, you know, and I always look back at that photograph and say, that's where I ended up with this woman, marrying her, and she helped raise that child that was unborn, and has real strong relationships with them. I'm separated right now at the moment with my wife, and again, through my experiences and looking back at how I dealt with disappointment and, you know, not rejection, but, you know, if the ending of something has taken place that I'm not overwhelmed by it, I didn't fall like a deck chair, I remained, you know, very focused. I wasn't very happy about it. I didn't call it, but now that it is what it is, I'm able to say, you know, acceptance is a huge part of my life. If I can accept my reality, but then I don't have to fight it as much. If I'm fighting something that I can't change, but then I'm gonna fight a losing battle. It's gonna be arduous. It's gonna be painful. I'm gonna be resentful, and all I can try to find is that I can find all the good stuff about it. Just days where I say, you know. But it's like that. And again, I got introduced to. I'm very interested in history. I like. You know about the universe. I didn't know there was 3 trillion billion galaxies. I didn't know all of that. I know a bit about quantum physics, and I love history. And I go down to, you know, skiing. I was in skiing. Where was I skiing? First time in Maribel in France, right? Got an opportunity to go skiing. Great idea. Great crack, right? Then I done that for a few years. Get to Norway for a skiing convention. Skiing recovery it's called. So people who are abstinent from drugs go there, have this convention and ski on, and then I'll show you the video sometime. And see skiing all down with the trick color, YuptheFlats and all, right? Okay, loud those head cases, like people like fucking nut jobs in their past life and living this dream beyond their wildest dream, skiing down a mountain in Norway. We couldn't fucking scooter car from one block to the other. You know what I mean? And here we were, and we left such a profound impact with people. The Irish always do it. And I've done it in the Balkans. I go down to skied in Montenegro, Slovenia, Serbia, all recently, the last couple of years I went skiing down there. It was just for a couple of days, but I've done it anyway. I have fantastic friends in Croatia, Slovenia, Bosnia, and you know, and Croatia, and Montenegro is where is my go-to place. And I have really, really good friends there, and when I go there, they look after me, and I'm hoping to go now in the next few weeks, to get a bit of work done in here at the gaff, and then I've got vaccines. And go down. I'm going to go to the Adriatic part of Albania, to the Adriatic coast there. It's an incredible place. And I've had so much, like that, you know what, I could be sitting with you for the next 5-6 days, and I'll remember this and I'll remember that. But the whole experience for me has been incredible. When I have sort of developed into this human being I never thought possible, right? And I never thought I could accomplish what I did, right? It's basic enough for some people, but for me to do what I've done and being provided with the opportunities, it wasn't just handed to me. I had to work extremely hard to do that. Not to go off and use when it was painful, when I was lonely, and when I was hurt or resentful, or someone decides that they don't want to be with you anymore, and that getting in the core, you got to your core. I remember me saying, I don't love you anymore. You know what I mean? And I had to swallow that without a drink or a drug or a nicotine, or young, and I'm going, wow. And I'm like screaming to the skies, to the heavens, you know? And because I couldn't grasp that level of you know, the word is, you know, that intensity, that emotional intensity, that I didn't have that emotional currency to deal with. Again, I hadn't been taught and nurtured in that. I had drank my way through stuff. If I got rejected, I'd drink my way, I'd use my way, I'd find another woman, or you know what I mean, and I'd start the whole cycle again. The difference now is that I don't seek it now. I don't seek to be with another woman. My wife, I think she's gone through menopause anyway, and this perimenopausal thing is causes all sorts of havoc. And she just wanted to time out, and she has it now. Like, but I'm not gripped in pity, or I gotta accept that that's just the way the reality of my life is now. I have loads of friends. I've loads of. I have a nice little home that I can. I can just chill out and stuff like that.
What a life! What a fucking life! We could sit here talking for hours. With all that you told me, returning back to that sense of, so I see the journey, or you return back to what your pure essence was, which is kindness, compassion, understanding. It was an inner knowing that you did, but just society didn't allow that to come to fruition. What's the one thing you would like to leave people after listening to this interview?
And that there's, if you think that you're beyond help, or that you feel that you're hopeless and it's not going to work for you, that if you trust him, and if you have these problems, especially with substance abuse, any substance abuse, there is help. And I found the help that I needed in one addict helping another, just like me and you and another human being who identify themselves as addicts. It's a derogatory word. It's just that's a term that we use, and people say, don't get hung up on the word, like, you know what I mean? Don't get hung up, people are telly addicts, they're food addicts, they're all sorts of problems. You know what I mean? It's the whole litany of things that you can home in on, and we have minds that will look for differences, and if you're looking for them, you will find them. I found a place where I found a tribe that I could identify with, people who I knew were from the same side of the street, and also people who were from middle class. They talked about that powerlessness and that pain, and why they were taking drugs was to alleviate some of that pain. was a pain relief and a painkiller for the trauma that they experience in their life. And why they're addicts, they don't know, but the acceptance of I am what I am and try to find your way in the world. I don't get it right all the time. I find myself having to apologise. The beauty about the 10 step and the 12 step is that you know, probably admit when you're wrong and be humble enough to say, you know what, I was wrong. And I could never admit that. I would never admit that. Unless it was caught bang the rights, do you know what I mean? Unless it was on video or the few witnesses would say, no, I heard him say, I couldn't do it. My pride wouldn't allow me. I've seen that as a very weak thing to do and very vulnerable. I'd leave myself very vulnerable, but really it's a strength that you can show some sort of humility to say, you know, I'm human and I make mistakes and people mightn't like certain things about me, but I know now that I'm more than just some of there's aspects of me that I need work on. I need to work on, and it's like a work in progress all the time. And I have a mind that will just hone in on them little you know, defects, I suppose. For all the experiences I've had and all the things I had to, you know, process without the use of drugs have instilled this resolve in me and this character building exercise that I've had brothers. Only one of my brothers died last year and he almost ate himself to death.
Eddie?
No, he ate himself.
No,
Paul.
Paul, sorry.
Right?
He used to train the Ivy.
He used to be in the Ivy
I remember him,
small, lived next door to it.
Daughter.
Yeah, and yes, he was, and that crucified him as well. He couldn't accept that he weren't as good anymore, and he roared after that. And he ate himself and took, you know, pain relief from the doctors, from prescription medication, gambling, food, and he just lost the will to die, and then he just put on so much weight. He died. He just didn't want to live anymore. And I don't want to get to that because you can get to that state of mind. Where you just, you know what, it's not work of no kids, you have kids, you're able to do this, you seem to be able to do what I'm not able to do. He was well able to do it, but he got lost. And to give him I mean, sometimes it was too close for comfort for me to try to, you know, trying to give him advice, it probably wasn't always a good thing to do, you know, because he didn't feel he was able to do that and he was beyond that. And I had, for some reason, had the formula to do what he couldn't do, and it was available to him. He just couldn't see past himself, like, you know, to get it out of the way yourself, you know. And wow. He said it's you know, there's loads of stuff that I hadn't got time, but it's as I said, it's whatever's happened is gone. It's in the post anyway, and deal with it when it comes and enjoy what I have. Be it I'm a bit sad now with that, you know. But also there's an opportunity for me for growth and development as a result of this. You know what I mean?
It's crazy that you speak about serendipity. You know, I'm here and delighted this podcast. Amazing. I have my own struggles, mental health struggles, and I'm in the process now thinking, will I go back and start having a few drinks? Will I do this? I'm sitting here with you now and the pain that you went through and the stuff you're telling me. So I'm meant to be here sitting here having this conversation. I'm going, fuck that, don't go back on the over the weekend I was contemplating drinking. I haven't drank in a year. Yeah. But I wanted to start medicating with drink again. Yeah. I said, nah, fuck that.
It's so attractive, isn't it?
Oh,
see the ice thing, the little things thrown down. Right, I have to see it through and I see you're sitting under the umbrellas. The umbrellas would be going through the windows, you know what I mean? I would be getting abusive and if someone says, fuck you, and I was just like an idiot.
I just go more drink, just more drink, then I go back on the drugs.
And that's it. And then the same people who used to walk away from you when you were drunk, you go back in. I remember going in to watch a match. You're having a pint, so you wouldn't even sit with me when I was drinking. What are you on about? I'd have one, and I knew as soon as I had one, I was gone. I couldn't stop. You say in the NA Fellowship or the NAA or whatever, one is too many, and a town is never enough. Do you know what I mean? And I went into these places where go and have a pint. 1 point. It's not worth that. I see the outcome of it. I see what I see the carnage then. I see I left it like call it a nuclear waste site behind me. You know what I mean? But I went about trying to change.
You're an unbelievable man, and I can't thank you enough. Tony, what a fucking interview. Thanks very much. I really appreciate sharing your story. I was emotionally impacted with that. Fucking phenomenal. Incredible human being.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Guys, thanks very much. That was an absolute belter. I absolutely loved it. I want to thank my brother Kieran for putting me on to Tony. It went beyond my expectations. I thought it'd be good. I didn't think it'd be that good. I didn't realise how much of an incredible human being he is. If anything impacts you on that show, whether it be the drink, the drugs, the mental health, that we talk about, reach out, reach for help, ask your community, tell a friend. It doesn't have to be a counsellor. As my pal in the hospital, Dr. Marie Frampton says, a friend is cheaper than a psychiatrist, and she's a psychiatrist. But we can put you in contact with anyone that needs to, or anyone that can help you. PA the House, Shannon's Hope Line, Mental Health Warriors, whoever it is, we can try to point you in that direction. So mind your little self. I want to give a shout out to Andy, Liberty's Media Hub, Noel Riley from Rudy Media Graphics, the girls from Shannon's Hope Line, doing amazing work in the Liberties around mental health and building grassroots strength for kids around mental health and suicide. The guys from Liberty Soup Run, from all the people that send in the love and kindness, all the support we're getting from YuptheFlats. I truly believe the people in the flats are amazing. I just want to spread that. Thanks to my main man Andy and you guys. So I mean this from the bottom of your heart. Mind your little self in service of your family, your community, and your country. It's really important, isn't it? And what we spoke with Tony and my own story is that inner child, that little kid that didn't get the love, the kindness, the compassion, the attachment. Not anyone's fault or blame, just what it was. That's just the way they were grown up. If you can recognise that, that's how we start minding our little self and we break this generational pain.
And some people would consider me a little bollocks as well.
But that's just part of us.
But you know what I mean? As much, you know what I mean? But I hear you, and you know, you shout out to a lot of things, a lot of people who, without that help, would impact, have a negative impact on people. And I know people who are in dire need of help. And you mentioned lots of people, and I know some people involved in them agencies, and they do remarkable work and incredible work and giving of themselves without looking for anything in return. I think that's a very honourable thing to do. You know?
Yeah, I do amazing. And I truly believe that the greatest worldwide epidemic is childhood trauma. Because anybody, from my own pain, other people's pain, a lot of it comes from that child. And no blaming the parents, because we can't blame the parents without blaming the grandparents, super grandparents, next. But blame doesn't do. Acceptance is the way, as you've said there. It's about accepting yourself. So look, thanks very much. That was a powerful interview. We fucking loved it. Take care.
YuptheFlats. YuptheFlats.